Hey there, this is the latest non scripted commentary video for In Between Reviews. And I thought today would be a good day to talk about how exactly I rate my games. Because I think it's important that you guys know that so you know why I rate things certain numbers. At least if you don't listen to the scripts, which I don't really care if you do or don't. But before we get into that, I wanted to look at some comments on the last set of reviews, which was the Genesis. So yeah, let's start with on Sonic 1. This is on TikTok, by the way. Somebody named Matoy says, the game Sega keeps re-releasing. Still an enjoyable time. And yeah, I feel like Sega will keep re-releasing Sonic 1. Really all the classic games for all of time. It's kind of their claim to fame for a lot of people. I mean, there's still tons of people who have played the classic games, and that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's probably a good thing to have these games readily accessible on any way you can play them. So yeah, I mean, is Sonic 1 my favorite one? No, I wish maybe they would re-release some of the other games, some games that might actually benefit from some touch-ups. But hey, it makes them money, so I can't really blame them. And it's not like porting Sonic 1 again is going to be extremely hard or time-consuming. At least I don't think. You know, we've seen we've seen Sonic Genesis, so maybe it's harder than I thought. But regardless, yeah, that's just kind of Sega. It's a lot of companies do that too. They just re-release their old classics for people to play, and you know what? I think that's totally fine. Totally fine. And then on the review for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sean88 says, I agree with your assessment of Sonic 3, the soundtrack for Flying Battery Zone, as well as the boss, the boss BGM has left me a lifelong impression. And I mean, yeah, there's the rumor that will forever live with this game that Michael Jackson did the music, or at least contributed to the music. Whether or not that's true, I think that just like really says how much effort went into the music, how good it really is. This is honestly like one of my favorite game soundtracks of like all time. I may be embellishing a little bit, but it's really good stuff. My personal favorite is Ice Cap Zone. And there's a nice, apparently it was like taken from a song that wasn't finished yet. And then they later released that song. It's called Hard Times by the Jetsons. I recommend listening to it. It's a pretty good song. But yeah, I mean, it's just the soundtrack at the very least. I think people can disagree with me on the gameplay. Like, if that's not your thing, then please, like, I'm not telling you have to play Sonic 3 just because I think it's a 10 out of 10 game. um, but yeah, I mean, the soundtrack is good stuff, and I'm glad that there's still people out there who like it and will listen to it. But with that said, I'd like to get into the way I rank games. This would be really handy for the future. So I would listen to my assessment, if you will, for this, and you'll get a better grasp of why I rate certain games certain ways. And I think I'm just gonna go through from like 0 to 10. So it might be a shorter commentary video, but that's okay. And why don't we just start with 0? Because yes, I do think that there are games that can be a 0. And for me, uh, those are the games that are just literally unplayable for some reason or another. Like, I can't physically play this game, so I can't rate it. and so it has to get a 0. You know, like if in a different world I was able to boot this game up, then I would probably give it a more fair assessment, for lack of a better word. But I mean, if I can't play it, I'm not gonna rate it, so it just gets a 0. So you could really think of the 0 as the sort of like non-applicable NA rating, but a 0 just looks it grabs your attention. So that's a 0. And a 1 is probably something that's like just extremely broken. Like you can play it, you might be able to finish it, but it's so glitchy. It's like the gameplay is fundamentally broken. Like it's awful. It's just you can't why would you do this to yourself? Like this is torture. And technically you can play it. You can boot it up and you press a button and it does a thing maybe half the time. Uh, but like a 1 is like it works kinda, but just don't do that. And then a 2 is a little bit more than that. Like I would call a 2 something that might be good, but is just like one of its core features is broken. And I think a good example for this is I have a 007 game on the N64, and spoilers for the N64 review, but I gave 007. It's not GoldenEye. It's I'm looking at it right now. The World Is Not Enough. I gave that a 2 because the controls just suck. I hate the controls for those games. And that's what I mean by like a core element is just broken. Like maybe this game is good if I play it all the way through, but I'm not going to subject myself to beating the whole game just because I think that element is that broken. And you know, it could be for controls. It could be visuals. Like maybe you just can't tell what the hell is going on, so like you can't play it for the most part. I mean, you can, but like it's just not fun. That's what I would call a 2. And a 3 is usually, for me, a 3 is like a 2 with something extra. Like if I were to use GoldenEye or 007 as an example again, I don't like the multiplayer, but if I was feeling generous, I would give 007 a 3 because the multiplayer can be fun. It's that little cherry on top that like, okay, there is at least something here that is playable and can be enjoyable. Now, I don't want to get too into 007. You'll know why I still gave it a 2, but that's what a 3 is to me. It's still like really broken, but there might be some nugget of good gameplay in there somewhere. And a 4 is just like, I feel like a 4 for me is the most frustrating score to give, because to me a 4 is a game that is finished. It's playable. It might even be a good game, but I just didn't like it. Like I couldn't bring myself to enjoy this experience, and so there's no other score for me to give than a 4. And if this was being played by a different reviewer, they might give it a 6 or a 7, but I just I can't enjoy it, so I have to give it a 4 because for me, this is a good segue into the 5 because I feel like a 5 is like right down the middle. That's where you're going to see the mediocre games, the ones that don't like make you feel engaged. They don't make you hate it. They're just there. They're just there. And in some ways, they can be a little more disappointing than like a 2 or even a 1 because they work, they function, but they don't do anything to stand out to make them engaging or really fun. And And so for games like that, I just put them at a 5, put them right in the middle. And that's why I put a 4 down there, is because at least a 5 like just was a neutral experience, but a 4 was something that I just couldn't like, even if it was like fully finished and bug tested and all this stuff. Just didn't like it. And there are also some instances of a 4 where I do like it, but it's also like glitchy or broken enough that I can't really say it was a good game. It's more of like, I liked it because it was bad. That's kind of, you can see some 4s and 3s like that as well. And then jumping over the 5 into the 6, you got like games that were okay. Like if somebody were to ask me about a game that I called a 6, like, oh, should I play that? I'd be like, if you got nothing else to do, it's not bad. Like, you can play it if you want. You're probably not going to have a bad time, but like, I feel like there's other things that you could play that would be more fun. It's like a positive experience, but it doesn't really grab me. It doesn't like hook me in with a good gameplay mechanic or anything. It's fine. And then a 7 is we're getting into like good territory. This is what I would call a solid, good game. It's good. It's flawed, but like, if you're gonna boot this game up, most of the time you're gonna have a good time. Like, don't push it too far. Don't expect too much, but you're gonna have fun. It's a pretty basic kind of score to give, but I feel like there's a lot of games out there like that, so you might see a lot more 7s in the future. And then there's an 8, which is a step higher, and I feel like you can expect a little more from an 8, because those are like great games. Games that are still, they're not perfect. They have some flaws. Maybe there's a gameplay element or moment that's like not that fun, but like the majority of the game is a really fun time. You can't take too much away from it. You boot it up, you're gonna have fun. And then a 9 is, it's really just like, for me, a 9 is a game that would be a 10 if it didn't have this like one thing that pulled it back for me. Because if you think about it, a 9 is like, most of this game is amazing. I had fun pretty much all the time. I was having a blast. I was really engaged into the story or the gameplay or visuals, really all of the above. But there was this one thing that I feel like kind of drew it back. It's not perfect. It's not a masterpiece, but it's still like really enjoyable, and I would suggest anyone play a 9 game. They're always good choices. Same with 8s, but 9's even more so. And then finally, you get the 10 out of 10. And I feel like there's a separate conversation here about a 10 out of 10. But personally, I feel like a 10 out of 10 is a game that I can't really find a way to criticize. Like, it's hard for me to poke holes into the design of this game. Like, some people will say, oh, a 10 out of 10 has no flaws. It's a perfect score. People like IGN will call a 10 out of 10 a masterpiece, because it has huge influence, or it should have huge influence on the industry. It does very innovative things with its design, and those things can all be qualities of a 10 out of 10. In my case, but I feel like a 10 out of 10 is just something that, if I try to criticize it, like, I'm not gonna find a lot to talk about. And really, the phrase I keep using when I describe a 10 out of 10 is that, like, I can't really go beyond nitpicks on this one. Like, there might be some things that I don't really prefer, but it doesn't make it a bad game. It doesn't really draw anything. Like, it doesn't negatively affect my experience. It's just not something that I am a huge fan of. But like, all in all, like, this game is just all good stuff. It's just a treasure trove of design, visuals, music, story, all that stuff. That's a 10 out of 10 for me. And yeah, that's about it. That's in a nutshell how I would rate stuff. Obviously, when we get into the specifics of games, things can change. I might give something a 4 for a slightly different reason than it was just good, but I didn't like it. um, but I hope that this can be a little bit of a shorthand for the numbers I give in the future. And yeah, I just hope this will be helpful. I still would love to hear conversation about this. Like, if you disagree with my scores, if you disagree with the things that I criticized about a game, I'd love to hear about it. But yeah, for the most part, those are my scores. And yes, that's it. The next video will be SNES reviews. And then we'll be moving into the third dimension after that. But stay tuned for the SNES review, and then the next commentary video after that. So you all have a fantastic day and take care.